Today's the day that I finally talk about the campaign of Halo Infinite. You guys have been following me for a while, well, some of you have. You know for a fact that I've been very critical of Halo under 343's lean, and when it comes to the multiplayer, I kind of laid back on them, but I still needed to see that campaign, and today, finally, we saw a good lengthy trailer. I'm going to put it in the background during the entire video, and I want to talk about this trailer. But before we get on to the video, definitely hit that like button if you guys enjoy the video. You can always subscribe to the channel for weekly content, and don't forget to go there and follow me at Twitter at Lord Addict ILP. Without any further ado, let's talk about Halo Infinite's story. What's going on, you guys? Gaming Guide here, coming at you for another video. Today we're finally going to be able to talk about Halo Infinite. We've known a good amount about Halo Infinite in terms of the multiplayer. We've actually even played the multiplayer on a couple different occasions, but there was always one thing that people did not know anything about. That was the campaign. And even a lot of people, such as myself, I was pretty much convinced that we weren't going to see anything related to the campaign until the launch of the game, because it's getting pretty close. I mean, we're almost about a little bit more than a month up till launch of Halo Infinite, and we still didn't see anything in form of the campaign itself, but we finally seen it. Today we seen a good 6-minute video breaking down a lot about the Halo Infinite campaign, and I figured I'm going to talk about it, give my perspective on a lot of things that was said in the video and a lot of things that was shown in the video. First thing we're going to talk about is the actual way that they showed in the first couple minutes of this video. They wanted you to really see that, look, we heard the feedback, we understand that a lot of you didn't like the way that Halo Infinite looked a couple years ago, and we want to make sure that you understand that we heard that criticism and we fixed it. And for the most part, I can think we can all agree that Halo Infinite is a decent looking game. Now, am I going to go out here and say, is it defining in terms of the way aesthetically the game looks? Or now, obviously, is it anything special? No, it's not, but I don't think it's going to hurt the perspective that you have of the game, and it's going to hurt the aesthetic of the game when you're playing it. I think for the most part, people are going to look at this and say, yo, this looks really good at a lot of portions of the game. Some portions maybe less than others, but I don't think no one's really going to give this game too much issues anymore going forward on the presentation of Halo Infinite. And I do think that was the biggest culprit of criticism that most people had towards Halo Infinite, was the aesthetics and how the game looked. Then we could go ahead and talk a little bit about the person that looks like he's going to be replacing Cortana, nicknamed Weapon. I think it's a little weird that the name is Weapon for AI. I know technically that's what AI is an artificial intelligence to be used as a weapon in a lot of different scenarios, but it's weird that they actually called this AI Weapon. Then Halo Infinite looks like a really open, enriched universe that goes into the sandbox. First thing I want to say is I want to really congratulate 343 and the attention to detail that they really have going on with the sandbox in Halo Infinite. I do think it's the best Halo Infinite's ever been. Well, Halo in general, not Halo Infinite, but I think it's the best Halo's ever been in terms of a sandbox. It looks like there is multiple different scenarios of ways that you can handle things in terms of, you know, there is outposts in here. Look a little bit like a Far Cry mixed with Halo, and I know a lot of people is getting really sick and tired of that formula that Ubisoft does, but if anything, I've noticed that that kind of formula works really good. It's just people are tired of it in Far Cry games. People are tired the Assassin's Creed formula. I don't know if bringing that formula to Halo is going to make sense to a lot of ways, but what I seen, it did look intriguing, it looked fun, and I think that they can pull it off, but we have to see it and I have to play it, because I, for one, am a little bit skeptical when it comes to merging that destroy the outpost, destroy this outpost, destroy that outpost, take control of the map, and then take the map back from the opposing person that you're fighting, which in this case is the Banished. So as like I said earlier, there is strongholds in this game, and think of Far Cry, the strongholds that you would take over that you're able to use as a resource in some way. I did see the actual pilot that's been in the trailers drop a Banshee. It wasn't a Banshee, it was a human. It might have been a Hornet. I can't remember exactly what the vehicle was called, but he dropped it down. Now, I don't like the animation that the vehicle did when it hit the ground. It kind of made it look a little bit not clean, in my opinion. Now, I understand that in a battle scenario, in an actual war scenario, scenario, it would go more like this because, you know, for the most part, when people drop equipment down in the middle of a war, they're not going to really care as long as the actual thing that they're dropping wouldn't get destroyed from that kind of a drop. But I didn't like how it like kind of like hit the ground and popped back up. I didn't like that. I felt like they could have did that a little bit cleaner, but I can understand in terms of a realistic war, this would probably be what would happen. And it does look like, you know, you're going to be able to go around, get Marines. I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be another one of those, you know, Ubisoft things where there's going to be Marines on the map that you can go get. I don't know if there's anything you can do specifically with the Marines, but it is interesting that they're bringing a lot of different activities and variety of stuff to do on the map that actually hopefully would lead to something down the road in the story where if you did enough of these activities, it makes that part of the story a little bit easier. One of the things that I did notice in Halo Infinite that I'm sure a lot of you notice is there's a tech tree. There's a grappling hook tree, there's a shield core tree, a threat sensor tree, a drop wall tree, and a thruster tree. Now let's go ahead and talk about the thrusters for a brief moment. It kind of looked a little bit more on the Halo 5 thrusting that was going on in that, where you would be able to thrust left and right. I'm kind of curious if this turns out to be really good and something really well that they're going to use in the story. If maybe down the line they might implement this in some way into the Halo multiplayer, and I would be okay with that if they did it right. Now I did notice that it does look like the grappling hook and all these upgrades, that it looks like their upgrades is using something else. Like for instance, if you look in the trailer, he you know, kind of thrusted to the left of that I don't know if it was an elite or a brute. It was most likely an elite, but when he thrusted to the left of him, he turned invisible, used camouflage. So I'm assuming that's how they're going to use these abilities, where you stack abilities on top of each other. And I think it's interesting. I think that Halo is a good way of doing the stuff that we're seeing. Probably the best scene in this entire trailer is when the Spartan Master Chief was thrown into the air. He took out a gun, he killed one Banshee, and then he grapple hooked on the other Banshee and he captured it. He killed the driver and he got into the Banshee. This is the kind of enrichment that I really liked what they're doing of Halo Infinite, because it shows what they can potentially do with the sandbox of Halo Infinite. And I like to know that that type of gameplay is there, because I've always felt like gameplay is over everything. The only thing that comes close to gameplay is the story, but the gameplay on Halo Infinite, in the story they showed, looked really enriching and looked really fun. It looked like you can really potentially tackle multiple different variety of things in any way you want to, and I really enjoy that. Variety of gameplay is always good to me in any way, shape, or form. Let me play the game the way I want to play it, and it does look like Halo Infinite is putting those kind of precautions into place where you can play this game the way you want to play. And I've always felt like, for the most part, Halo Infinite's always been a closed off thing where you have to play the way the game was designed. Now, as far as story, they didn't really go into too much in story in terms of Halo Infinite's campaign overview, but they did introduce a couple characters. They introduced an elite that has 2 energy swords. It looked like one was a little bit smaller than the other. I don't know what that's about, but it's interesting that, you know, the Banished are training elites to fight the Spartans, because it was called a Spartan killer. He's clearly been trained to kill Spartans. So my question for that is the Banished always trained certain elites and certain brutes to fighting Spartans and to be a Spartan assassin, or is it just something that they implied into Halo Infinite to give it a little bit more lore? I think it's very interesting, and I can't wait to see more about this group, or maybe it's just this elite. I hope it's a group. I hope there's a group of people that have been trained from the ground up to be Spartan assassins. I hope we see more than just this one elite. Now let's talk a little bit about looks like the main antagonist of the game. I don't know if it's the main antagonist, but it was kind of like a forerunner, but not a forerunner. She actually referred to the forerunners in like a third party nature. She didn't refer to herself as being a forerunner, but she did look a little bit forerunner way. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, she kind of had the armor that you would expect a forerunner to wear, and she kind of did stuff you would expect a forerunner to do, like levitate and stuff. So it's kind of curious to see exactly what they're doing with this, because under my impressions, I always thought that the base game of Halo Infinite will be about the Banished. Is she part of the Banished, or is she just a Forerunner person that went AWOL? Maybe she's not even Forerunner at all. Maybe she is the enemies of the Forerunner. I'm very curious to see exactly how they do this in terms of when the story actually comes out. But as far as this actual trailer, look guys, you know I've been very critical of Halo. You know I've always kept 343 and I've put their feet to the fire when it was proper to do that, when I felt like it was justified to do that. I feel like the way they have shown the multiplayer and the way they're showing this campaign, there's no more reason to put their feet to the fire. I feel like they have done enough for me to be like, all right, I think you can actually do this 343. Let's just see what the game actually looks like. And I honestly feel like they can. We're going to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Maybe they'll release some more information. I know the game's coming out in about a month and a couple days, so maybe they won't. Maybe this is the last thing we see. I don't think that is. I think they might show a little bit of other stuff, maybe in one more video, but we'll have to see. But good job to 343. I really enjoyed the way that they presented this actual campaign overview, and I encourage everyone to go watch this if you haven't. But this is Gaming Addict. I'm out here. How did you guys feel about the Halo Infinite campaign overview? Very curious to hear you guys' opinion. Put it in the comment section below, and until next time, this is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.